Good afternoon, everybody. I know I keep always saying I'm going to come on and do this and that, but I don't know. It seems like I've been having problems with my laptop, or I don't really know what I'm doing. So hopefully nobody is live. But if no one come in, when you come and see the live, please hit the like button, share, and subscribe to my channel. Like I said, May is a very busy month, for us, with all our birthdays going on and then added on to my granddaughter going to her graduation. And so tomorrow, well, her graduation is tomorrow. So, I'm excited about that. She get her diploma and, then the next step, she'll be going away to college. Hey, Zay. Um, yeah, so I'm just gonna just start telling a little about my life story. I'm not gonna do it all in one day. You know, it was like eight of us. My mother and father was married, so they was from North Carolina. Hey, Tips World, and they was from North Carolina. So back in the day. Hey, Lakeisha, all the money was in Baltimore. So I guess from one step, like when they was living in North Carolina, I wasn't born then, so they moved from North Carolina to Norfolk, Virginia. So I was born in Norfolk, Virginia. So it was eight of us, and I was the seventh child. So I was the baby girl, and I had a brother that was younger than me, but he passed on. So, like living in a household like with eight people, and I think I had said one time before that my mother was light skinned, my father was dark skinned. So some was light skinned, some was dark skinned. So you get a little confused because kids can be evil to each other. So I was skinny, big eyes, and then my mother ain't really know how to do no hair back then, so really ain't have too much hair, you know. But there's a lot of stuff, that my sister and them tell me that I don't remember because life had got better when me and my brother was born. So but we did have a father that was a cheater. My mother did housework and my father he had a good job, but he ran the street. Hey Cassie baby. He ran the street a lot, so he really wasn't paying bills like he was supposed to be paying bills. So when you grow up in a house with eight kids and seemed like everybody had talent, everybody was smart in school except you just didn't know where to fit in the family. I felt like an outsider in my own family. Hey, sweetness 49. And it's not that nobody treated me different, but you know how you have your own thinking of things. So anyway, I think it was just that I was so shy to even participate when I went to school. So a lot of stuff I didn't learn, you know, and I can read to get along, but I'm not no really smart person, but I will keep me a job and I will survive. So I got teased a lot when I was in school because I was born in the 50s. So, back then, them days, y'all, I'm smoking a cigarette too. Please forgive me. But I love to smoke cigarettes as I have said before. And so like being shy, I didn't participate in school, wouldn't play with none of the kids. And me and my baby brother, we started school together. So that was like my friend. So I guess by me not participating in school, they thought something was wrong with me or whatever, right? So we wind up getting separated. I went to one school, he went to another school. And mind you, I wound up on the yellow bus, and to today I couldn't tell you why I wound up on that yellow bus, right? But anyway, and I got teased a lot in that school. It was like a shit, would I say a trailer school or whatever? Well, that was the most miserable time of my life, you know. And when they finally tore that dang on place down, me and my daughter had rolled past there, man. I just cried because they just treated me terribly in this school. So anyway, just as life goes on and stuff, I was, and I was living right and working and, doing what working people and people that live in a productive life do. and then I had my daughter at 22 years old. And so I'm working. It just seemed like everybody in life that was surrounding me, my age, seemed like they was having fun and, doing everything. I was just working. It was just always me and my daughter, you know, even though, I had my family or whatever, but it just seemed like I wasn't doing stuff as young people did. Even when I was a teenager, I started off in life late, to be honest. You know, first time my relations, I was 18 years old. And so that experience was a crazy experience because I really didn't know anything about life, really, even at being the age that I were, because I was always a mommy's girl, always under my mother all the time. So anyway, life went on. So and my baby brother, he used to live near me, so he was in the street life or whatever. So one of his homeboys came home. I'm not giving no names because I don't know if they be on YouTube or whatever, but or if they're gonna see my video because he's married again now. So anyway, when he came home from jail, and I was still real shy and nervous, even after I had my daughter, I still was real shy and nervous. So anyway, I got in a relationship with him. I got married to him at 27 years old. So when people selling drugs or whatever, they have the friends and the friends' girlfriends. So by my first husband having the money and the drugs and all, so of course the girls that want the drugs, they're gonna try to tell you, that it was good and to make you feel good about yourself. So when I did it the first time, I didn't like it, right? So then I did it again. So it just seemed like I opened up, I started talking, I was really being the person who I really am, when I was on those drugs. So things seemed like it was going real good at first, before I knew about some habit and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, time went on. He went back to jail again. Me and my daughter was running, and his son wound up living with us because he was a kid too. So he started staying with us. So by him on drug, by him selling drugs, we was running from the police. We was running from the bounty hunters and all that kind of stuff like that. So he went back to jail. So by then I had a drug habit. So of course I had a drug habit, and then I met somebody else. While he was in jail, even though I kept going to see him and doing the stuff that I was supposed to be doing as his wife, because we had got married when I was 27. But I met somebody else because they could get the money and all that kind of stuff. So that continued my drug habit and whatever. Well, I'm from Norfolk, Virginia. I moved up here when I was 5 years old, and I still have a lot of family from Norfolk. But now I live in Baltimore. So, I'm in the county. But when we moved here, I grew up in the hood, but now we's in the county, so it's a little more peaceful. So, anyway, so my drug habit continued on, you know. Then my husband came back home again, so, he still was hooked back up with the same people getting the money. My drug habit continued. And then I started stealing from him. He got a safe. I broke in the safe. It was just a vicious cycle. So then he wound up going to jail for bank robbery. I mean, he just used to do anything to get money, So, I was like, I tell my daughter, like, I done had a lot of money in my hands, but them drugs make you just throw everything away. So, I really didn't like it, sniffing drugs. And then I had met this other girl. Hey, Lawanda. Then I met this other girl who introduced me to smoking coke. So, it was just vicious cycle, and I can't even really lie and say that i I had a really bad time. How some people always sick and they couldn't make this happen, they couldn't make this happen, because one thing I always tried to keep myself up so I can have a boyfriend. Either he got the stuff or he had the people pills that he could shake the pills or whatever. So I seen that I were getting bad. So I took my daughter, because at that time I didn't have a car. So I had one of those bastards. So I packed my daughter's stuff up, and for 2 days I moved my daughter's stuff up to my mother's house, because one thing I didn't want to really spill over into my daughter life. And when you on drugs, you really not paying attention to a lot of things. So I didn't want my daughter to wind up, something sexually happening to my daughter. So I took her up there and stayed with my mother. So my mother used to take my daughter to school every day and everything. So then, I wind up moving around the corner from my mother, because I never really lived it far from my mother. Wherever I moved at, it was always walking distance to my mother, because, like I said, I was a mama's girl, you know, and oh, excuse me, they was making noise out here. I'm sitting outside on the balcony, so I was just peeping around and see what that noise was. So, and then even one time, me and this other girl, we was going, because you get friends when you're on drugs. And that never been me. I never had no friends or hung around with nobody. So we was going copping one night. So these guys came up with masks on and pulled the gun out on both us. They took our money, took our tenants and everything, but they let us go and stuff. And it wasn't that. Well, I did lose a lot of stuff, because I had a lot of jewelry, nice furniture, expensive furniture. So at that time, when I was living around the corner from my mother, at that time, my daughter, she had got like about 14 or 15 years old. So my daughter seen, she was staying around the corner with my mother. So I had an open house. I opened up my house, and mind you, I was letting people sell drugs out my house and getting paid for them selling drugs out my house. So anyway, I opened up my house. I sold everything out my house, so my daughter got to see people walk through the neighborhood with my dresser, our bedroom sets, and you know, refrigerators. I sold everything that was in the house. And that was like kind of like embarrassing. So then after those people left, I had other people. Now I always got good people to work out my house where they was gonna pay me, because I never played about my money, and to this day I still don't play about my money. So we had they had three houses. I kept the money, and the other people kept the drugs, and other people kept the other thing. So anyway, so I'm sitting up there getting high one day. So I hear these footsteps, right? So I'm in there smoking. So before they kicked all three doors in at the same time, I didn't let that go. When they came upstairs, I was just still pulling up on the thing, right? So they was like, drop it. So I had got locked up. So which I got locked up. So I didn't have a criminal record, and I didn't have any drugs in my house. All I had was money. So they gave me certain things that I had to do, like go to a drug program, get my GED, and so I didn't do any of those things, and I was supposed to get 18 months. So the cycle of drugs just kept going. I kept ducking the police, and so one day I was sitting on the wall, and at that time my daughter was about to graduate from school, you know, and mind you, well, let me back it up a little bit. Before my daughter was about to graduate, I got put out in my house, right? So I moved around with my mother. So my mother only had one bedroom. So my mother had me, my sister, two sisters, and two nephews living in her one bedroom. So my daughter slept in the bed with my mother, and my mother said, "All of y'all my dope fiends." My mother didn't let us be out on the street or anything. She said, "You take a spot on the floor. I'm not buying no drugs. I'll give you a roof over your head and feed you," and that was it. So when my daughter was getting ready to graduate, let me smoke a cigarette. So by the time my daughter was getting ready to graduate, I was still getting high and still had that charge over my back. But I knew I was ready to stop getting high. Well, anyway, I was sitting outside, in the projects, waiting for the guys to come back. And to this day, I couldn't tell you how this girl or woman looked, but both of us was waiting for our stuff to come back. So it's like I was sitting on this wall, and it was like I could see me coming outside of my body, just running around getting drugs and all. So I just started busting out crying and telling this girl my story about my daughter and how my daughter finished in school you know, and I was just telling her everything, and I wanted to get myself together so bad, but of course the cycle kept on going, so the cycle kept on going, and so I still had the charges on me and stuff. So one day I went up another part of town to cop drugs, and I mean it was a blizzard outside. Now I had on tennis, mind you, and the snow was almost up to my knees. So, but I was standing out there in this snow, and I just started crying. Like if I was sick, I would be saying it's too much snow to go out there. So I was out there standing out there, and I was just crying. So then one day, because I was living on a small little street or whatever. Used to live in a small little street. And anyway, they had my nephew on the ground and they was beating on him and all that. So I was like, leave him alone. Don't put your hands on my nephew. So they used to call him housing authority. One time they got housing authorities to come out, acting like they was sure enough police. Anyway, so I didn't move. So they was like, lock that bitch up, right? So when they locked me up, I felt like it was a relief once they put me in the car. But then, I started feeling shaky because I knew I was going to have to go through that sickness. But when they had raided my house, it was so close to around there by my mother. And I used to tell my mother, I say, look, if I keep doing what I'm doing, they going to raid the house because please don't come around there crying or whatever. But my mother ain't the type that would cry, right? Because my mother wanted all us to get ourselves together. So when they raided the house, my mother was out there. So this knocker that used to always mess with my husband, he recognized me. So he thought my husband was my mother's son because my mother was light skinned and I was dark, but it was the other way around. So I told him, please don't let my daughter come around here because that would have really been a hurtful thing. So when they brought me out the house with handcuffs on, I didn't even look my mother way. She kept trying to get my attention to look around and all that, but I didn't look her way. So when I was in there, mind you, it only costed $100 and some to get me out of prison. So the people that I knew, they wanted to get me out and wanted to give my mother the money, but my mother say, she's staying in there to get clean, right? Which that was the best thing my mother could have done for me, and that was the best thing that could have happened to me, you know. So when I was in there, my daughter, she had finished school, which when the time for her graduation, and I went there, she said, look, she said, don't come to my graduation high. She said, you can do a one-on-one or something so you won't be sick. But if you got to be high coming to my graduation, then I don't even want you there, you know. So anyway, I got to go to her graduation because I kept on saying after my birthday, after her birthday, I was going to turn myself in or whatever. But it didn't happen like that, the situation with my nephew. So that's when I wind up, getting locked up. So I was supposed to do 18 months. So I lived it in that, even though I lived it in that house still, during that time. So when I went to court, I was in locked up for 2 months. So when I went to court, the judge say Miss Austin lived it in that house 4 years after that situation happened, and nobody never served her a warrant. So she was like time served. So when I had came home, right, my daughter always been a good daughter. I always talk about my daughter, but she had went up the street, where my mother was living at, and talked to this older man. and letting him know that I was getting ready to come home, and could he hold that house for us. She went up there, she put her hands on that house, she prayed on that house. So when I got home, I got me a job straight off the top. So all I had was the first month of rent, and I didn't have no furniture or no nothing to move in this house. So the older man, he was so nice. He had another property the way he had furniture stored in there. So he gave me a bed frame, a refrigerator, a kitchen table set. And my daughter, she used to do everybody hair in the block because, they was promoting my daughter, because she was doing the right thing and finishing school. So did I didn't even get to the part about when my daughter graduated because I hadn't got locked up then. But I was so embarrassed, right? I had never seen inside of a limousine. Now, mind you, my mother did all of this alone. My mother was a good mother. Even to all her kids, my mother was a good grandmother to my daughter. She helped supported my daughter. You know, she got my daughter the dress that she want, $400, a stretch limousine and all. But her boyfriend that she was going with at the time, they was church people. So I was so embarrassed. I watched a whole block away to see my daughter get into that limousine and pull off because I didn't want them to think that my daughter didn't equal up to their son because I was on drugs. So for a long time, and I guess maybe 7 years. So I've been clean 20 some years, about 28 years. But for a long time, I used to always feel so bad and be down on myself. I would cry about it, because what mother don't want to be the mother to go around, and help their daughter get their dress and participate in all the activities and all. So, anyway, I had been clean for a while. So me and my daughter relationship was messed up. It was tarnished, because of my drug use and stuff like that, right? So my daughter used to disrespect me, you know, and I'm so glad, that it wasn't on a YouTube thing, but you know, like your kids, a lot of people won't admit, but your kids can say some horrible things to you. And my daughter said some horrible things to me. And I had to eat that up, because my daughter was just used to me and her doing a lot of things together. My daughter was like 7 years old when I started doing drugs. So anyway, so my daughter used to say a lot of horrible things to me, but I used to tell her all the time, but I used to give you money, and then she used to always say, but 20 years is amazing, Sheila. Yeah, 28 years, tips. Yeah, so I couldn't figure out why would she treat me so bad, and we couldn't get along for long when we was around each other. But neither one of us gave up. We kept going to the hotel. We cried about it. We talked about it. And one day it just hit. She said, "Man, you know what?" She said, "I never remember once that you asked me what did I want to do, because when my first husband kept going back to jail, we was always running to the jail. I've never really asked my daughter what she wanted to do in life, or thank you, tips, or what activity that she wanted to get in. I made that her life too, which I felt like that was my job to do, because this man took care of us and he treated my daughter like it was his own child. So anyway, I had been working for a while, and I still hadn't got the place just that yet, right? So one day I came in from an NA meeting. So and my daughter was still frustrated, even though I was clean. So I come in from a meeting, so she just bust out crying and just grabbed my shirt and like ripped my shirt and broke my gold chain that my nephew had gave me when I first came home. So I was getting ready to get her, right? So, I was still living in my mother's house at that time. So my mother jumped in there, no, no, it ain't none of that. So I said, you know what? I went on back to the back where my mother bedroom. So I unbuttoned my shirt, right? I said, when she come through here, and I let my daughter know that I was going to tell the whole story. I wasn't going to leave anything out. So when she come on, I told her to be honest about everything, about how she felt or whatever. So I took my shirt off. Man, I'm from the old school, So when I said, if I let her get away with this, oh, it's gonna be all out war on my ass, right? So when she came through that little narrow hallway, and my daughter's taller than me, when she came through that hallway, I just bent down and grabbed her by her knee and whooped her up and flipped her over, got on top of her, and I just started popping and banging her black the eye, pushed her head through the wall and everything, right? So when she got up, she's like, it's a shame you gonna put your hands on your daughter. No, it's a shame you put your hands on your mother. So I guess that was one of the reasons why too that, we had such a, then again, it probably wasn't, but because that's my only child. And I know she was hurt that, I was doing what I was doing when she would come around the corner to my house. I had a bunch of people in there, we getting high and everything, and mind you, the guy that I got married to, you know, he wasn't on drugs. I started stealing his drugs. So, and she used to come around the house, tearing up shit, telling everybody to get out, you know, and just dumping people's shit out on the floor or whatever. But I never would touch her because I knew all of that was out of love and it was out of hurt. But once I started getting myself together and then she did that to me, I knew I had to put these hands on her. So that after that day forward, I didn't have no problem with my daughter putting her hands on me. She would mouth, but with her putting her hands on me, she knew that was a no go. So anyway, we just kept trying to work on our relationship, and we would go to the hotel. We'd stay the weekend, and we'd do things together. So and mind you, I let my daughter do a lot of stuff like, when I had my place out, if she didn't want to go to school, I would let her stay home, you know. And let me tell you this part though, that really made me start looking at shit for what it was. I guess she was like about 13 years old, and I had went out and to get something. When I come back, she had a line in the alley. My daughter had the drugs, and she was out there selling the stuff in the alley. I was like, oh my God. That was like so hurtful and so shocking to me. So then one day she just came to me and said, you know what, man? I realize you don't want nothing for your life, but I do. I'm going back and stay with my grandmother. So she left there, packed her clothes at 12, and went round the corner and started staying with my mother. Because you never ever hit your mama. Yeah, that's right. You never ever hit your mama. That's look. I'm from the old school. You put your hands on me. Oh, you gonna feel me. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna kill you or nothing, but I'm gonna let you know. Oh, you're not gonna be doing that to me. Period. So me and my daughter just couldn't get along for a long time. Then my daughter just recently is like our relationship is just like really is just getting really peaceful now. My daughter, she finished school, she came out homecoming queen, and I'm so glad. And like she said, regardless that all us was on drugs, we never was too busy to try to give her an encouraging word, because she used to always say, if I don't get nothing new this week to go to school, then I'm quitting school. And I never would look back at it. I said, well, you can quit school all you want to, have 3 or 4 babies, pushing 2 in a stroller and carrying 1 on your hips. And I just kept going. So, she told me, she said, man, you know what made me really do the right thing? Not just because they used to call my mother Big Reds, not because she did and gave me so much in the little bit that you used to give me. She said, but that always stuck in my head about you saying me having all those kids and being nothing and having nothing in life. So that's what made her strive to do the thing that she did, finishing school and went to college and all that. So anyway, life is just really getting really great with me and my daughter. She done joined church, and she had started talking to, a psychiatrist to help her feel better, about our situation, and she found out, things could have been worse, because anything could have happened to her. So I'm so proud she's in church. She's more patient with me now. So I guess after I got clean, because my mother was living in the projects. So after I got clean, I convinced my mother, let's buy a house together. So me and my mother had started buying a house together. Mind you, my mother had very good credit. My father had passed, so my mother had got a great big lump sum of money. So she asked all her kids. At that time, all of us was clean by then. So she asked all her kids what did they want. My mother always supported us, period, point blank. And even my father too. Even when my mother left my father, that was a hurtful thing too for us because I was like 13 and my brother was 12, I think, my younger brother. So that was hurtful for us. So that's when we moved on Carlton Avenue, Cassie. That's when I met your father and your mother and them, because your mother and father was living down there when we moved down there. So everyone like Cassie. Cassie is like one of my best friend. Her father was like my best friend, like a family member for real. And I had told Day Day that one day, on the live, like Cassie baby father was the most funniest person. So my mother broke up with my father. Then, we moved down on Carlton Avenue and stuff. So still, I was still like a shy person and all that. That's when I was still young. Look, I'm going back and forwards, y'all. But let me stay on my daughter part first. So anyway, so me and my daughter relationship, it just done got so much better. And I just thank God that I was clean before my first grandson was born, because he's 23 now. I'm glad my grandkids didn't get to see me on drugs or anything. So one day my daughter told me she had told my grandkids about me being on drugs. So it kind of hurted and it made me cry, right? I was like, well, why would she even do that, right? But she said her reasons for doing that because she wanted her kids to know the bad side of life too. She told them the experience that me and her went through. So then, I kind of respected that because, I could be the one to talk to my grandkids about that type of life and stuff like that. So things is just getting so much better with me and my daughter. So I told you all about the trip I'm going to in November. My daughter paid for the trip, you know, for the airplane to be my first time on an airplane. And then we going to Miami for a day because I used to always live my dreams out of her and my kids going to Miami and all that old kind of stuff. And she would call me on a live and just show me all the places and when they go on a cruise and show me all the places on the cruise. So she didn't even ask me this time. She just paid for it. So November, I will not be cooking for Thanksgiving. I'll be in Miami for one day. Then we boarding the cruise ship, and then we're going to the Bahamas. So anyway, so we moved down on Carlton Avenue. Mind you, I was still shy then. I was a teenager. So all the girls, they was having sex or whatever, you know what I mean? But like I said, I was still a mommy's girl. My mother would say to anybody if she was living, I was the best child she had. My sisters and them, they don't really like that saying, but it just was what it was. My mother never had to worry about me sneaking off, running away, or worry about if I'm doing something that I had no business doing. So when I got like, I guess about 17, and I seen this boy that I liked. I said, man, I need birth control pills. So those country people, they ain't play that talking about, different stuff, sexual stuff and all that kind of stuff. Sound like fun, Sheila. You enjoyed yourself. You enjoy yourself. Yes, I'm going to enjoy myself, Lawanda. Because that was going to be my first experience. And it's going to be so much better, because all my sisters going, my grandkids going, one of my nephews is going, and we're going to have some fun. So like 17 years old, I was like still a virgin, still wearing plaits, ponytails, and all that kind of stuff, you know. So now now Cassie baby father, right? He used to be crazy about me and Cassie baby's mother, Nate, which is Nadine. So when we was young, he used to always say, "I'm gonna marry you or Nadine." You know what I mean? But Kevin was never my type to have a relationship with. I just always looked at Kevin like a brother. So so then we moved from down there, you know, and then life went on, time went on. So I never wanted to leave my mother. So my other sister and me and my mother had a place together. So my sister didn't want to pay her part. So my mother said, "You know what? I'm getting my own place," and I cried. I was grown then. I guess I was about like 20 then. I didn't never want to leave my mother. I always wanted to live with my mother. So I deal with anxiety now, because I'm gonna tell you, I hear people talk about losing their kids, and Lord knows I don't want to experience that either. But let me tell you, my mother was my best friend. My mother was my everything. You know, I wouldn't care what kind of car, even though I had a job, but my mother had the credit. I wouldn't care what kind of job car I wanted. My mother was always there to promote me, and like I said, we had started buying a house. So I guess we had been living there almost a year. My mother fell down the steps. So when she fell down the steps, she broke her hip. So what had happened was what's that word? Equal liberty or something like that. I can't pronounce the word right, y'all. Well, anyway, it was like she was off balance or whatever, right? So then we found out my mother had colon cancer, but not knowing back when she was living in the projects that when my mother used to poop, she would see blood, and then when she used to go to the doctor, they always used to tell her her blood was low, and to go have it checked out. My mother never did do that, so at that time I was, didn't know what was going on with that situation or whatever, right? So anyway, my mother had the surgery, right? So she kept doing chemo, but it didn't work for her, So what I had to do was I had to leave that house, because I didn't have nobody to help me with my mother, and things whether didn't have a toilet or nothing downstairs. So I needed everything to be on one floor where my mother could cook for herself while I was at work or whatever. So anyway, things got worse and worse, So I wound up had to take care of my mother. I went to classes to learn because my mother was a big woman at the time, before she lost all her weight. So I learned how to move my mother from the bed to the chair, from the chair or from the wheelchair, and then, to get her in the tub or whatever. So, like my mother was my best friend, then was like my mother became my child because I had to do the role that she did for me. I had to change her. Like one day I came home from work. She had those little potties that they give you to sit in the room, and she must have pooped early that morning. And girl, when I got home from work, I mean that stuff stinked so bad. I cried. And my mother just laughed at me and said, "It must have really stink." She said she was telling one of her friends on the phone that she never heard me complain about it or anything. So that's when I start like cooking and learning how to cook fresh vegetables, because canned stuff got a whole lot of sodium in it and all. Like I said, I went to class, to learn, the things that my mother should eat and shouldn't eat. She didn't want to drink those ensures. So I started putting vegetables and fruit and a little dip of ice cream in it. I tried to like really like nurse my mother back to health. So when she would get sick, she used to tell me, "What you gonna do when I leave here?" I told her, "I'm gonna keep your head hot because I'm gonna put a hat on it." You know. So and it seemed like all of that was working, right? So I kind of like then when she got so bad I couldn't work no more. I was just basically living off of my mother's money that was coming in from a month, right? So things just started getting piled up, bills started getting piled up, bills started getting piled up. So my mother never wanted to live with none of my brothers and sisters, period. Wherever I go, my mother wanted to go with me because my mother used to always say she knew I was going to make things happen. So anyway, my brother at that time, we had moved closer to my brother because my mother had got worse. So, I needed to catch on to my life, and I had to keep telling myself that because sometimes I just start feeling bad because when I told my mother that, I'm gonna have to let her go over there because, my car was getting backed up, I had no job, you know, and I just needed to survive. So I let my mother go over there and and I guess maybe I don't think my mother lasted a year after then. So I had came home from work one day and I went over there. So, my mother, she was talking at first, then she lost her voice. So I was like, I'm going out and smoke a cigarette. So when I came back in the house, my mother eyes was closed. She wasn't talking or nothing. So, I thought like she was gone. But when I felt that she was still breathing, so I called the hospice people, right? So they was like, well, no, she's not gone, yet. Um, she just making connection with your brother and your father and everything. Um, but so my mother passed on, and I had told my daughter, and for a long time, and believe me, I still really can't remember that. But my sister say they was in the family car. I held grudges from my sisters and them for a long time, because I guess I was like in a blacked out stage. I'm thinking that I was riding in that funeral car all by myself. I felt like I was so all alone. Y'all forgive me. I mean, my mother been gone since '06, y'all, but I'm telling you, when I talk about it, it's like all that hurt come back. Because I'm gonna tell you, is even though I know my daughter love me, but it's no love like your mother love, period. So I wind up start going to bereavement classes, you know, and like one day I was like driving, I never thought about using drugs again, but something just told me to just keep driving over this bridge. So I don't know. Well, my daughter knew I was having a rough time. So my daughter had called me and said, "Man, turn around and go see mama and go talk to her." So anyway, I wind up going to therapy, wind up getting on medications and all that. That was really like stressful for me. It was like a lot of things I just don't remember about that day. I was so stunned. Like I didn't even cry really at the funeral. It's like I was there and I wasn't there. So but that was a hurtful thing. And then, my baby brother, I guess he been gone like 5 years. And then that was another hurtful thing because, me and him started school together because, we were 11 months apart. We went to, summer camp together. We did a lot of things together. So now, I deal with a lot of anxiety. So I was on medicine one time, but after a while, that medicine started making me feel like I was crazy. So, and a lot of times what I do, I like lay back, relax myself, and talk to myself. You know, you know, trying to calm me down and all that. But so I'm still like kind of like I wouldn't say shy, but I'm still like kind of like nervous, like. And I know everybody else be on the flow with when they on live or whatever. But I'll get better with it. Like some days I'll say, well, I should go live, but then I'll feel like, well, these people don't want to hear nothing from me. I don't really have anything to say. It's like everybody commentary, they just flowing with it, and they just know what they doing with it. So, I just and I always feel like I have nothing to offer. You know what I mean? But that's like my mind, I'll assume, or I guess. But yeah. So like then after being clean for a while, I was still like living in the hood. So me and my sister and my nephew, we decide we'll put our money together and, move out in the county and be more peaceful, So it really like give me a chance to like think, sit out on the balconies and, and just be in a peaceful mode, you know. And I did, oh my God, I wish all of y'all could see my Facebook page because I was supposed to go live for my granddaughter's prom. Oh, it was so beautiful. My daughter went all out for my granddaughter. She wore pearls and diamonds on her shoes and she had a Rolls Royce. I mean, my daughter really did her thing. So tomorrow is her graduation, where she get her diploma and all that. And she's going to college in Durham, North Carolina. Now, mind you, my grandson, he's a totally different breed. I don't know if he's like, I'll guess antisociable. Well, anyway, when he came in the place when she had a prom, he sit way in the back because, he don't like all that people stuff, right? So, anyway, so he graduated too, but he didn't go from college. So he got his degree in accountants, but he's going back because he wants to become a basketball player. Y'all, I've been on here for almost an hour, right? So basically, like, I know I done missed some stuff, and when I come back on, I probably have had some other stuff to say. But this going to be in other parts. I don't know when my daughter going to be available to come on to tell her part because I asked her will she come on because I want other people to know how this affect the children. When we think we on drugs, we think we're not affecting nobody but ourselves, but yeah, y'all, and I appreciate y'all listening to me and me going back and forward, and I know, look, y'all, my nose running. Lois, could you bring me a paper towel, please? um going back and forwards and all that. So it's like a flip flopping thing. But yes, I mean I had the best mother in the world. Yeah, I had the best mother in the world. So and I got the best daughter in the world. But yeah, so my daughter and them, I don't know what year she's gonna do, but she went to Florida and did all her paperwork. Eventually, my daughter and my grandkids going to move to Florida. But of course, you don't want me to go yet. I say, I guess you'll come and get me when I can't do nothing for myself. Uh, yeah, so I'm just so proud of my daughter and my grandkids. Because it could have been different. My daughter could have wound up on drugs or not doing anything with her life. So y'all, I'm going to end this live now because I don't want to just keep on rambling on, So I know when I come back, it's going to be more, but it's going to, be different because, you just don't have all the story together at one time. You mean Miss Sheila, my mother passed in 2004. I was only 31. It was devastating to everyone. Yes, sweet Nessa, devastating. I'm telling you, when you have a real mother, a genuine mother, and nothing. Now it hurted when my father passed, but it's nothing like when your mother passed. So if anybody have their mother, believe me, just love on your mother, man, because once your mother gone, you'll never get another one of them. Nobody could never replace your mother at all. So, y'all, I'm getting ready to end this live, and everybody have a good day. And I'll see the next person that go live. Thank y'all. Please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And thank y'all.